think the highest mortality rate in turnover is feeling complacent and not challenged. And some people are okay with it, but most people want to get that next boost, switch to a different venue to be challenged again. And so here the thing we're really making sure we stay focused on is how do we engage in a much broader spectrum of other individuals at similar stages in their career, so we can help everyone stay highly engaged and have a solid career path.
Hi everyone, and welcome to Design Development, your hub to learn direct from top performers in real estate development, design, and construction. I'm your host, Renz Hayes, founding partner of H&O Lifelong Learner, and I am personally obsessed with high-powered organizations and the leaders that guide them. If this is your first time listening, thanks so much for joining us. And if you're a returning listener, can't thank you enough. Let's go. I'm excited to introduce today's guest, Dartagnan Brown. He is the founder and CEO of EMBARC. They are a Boston-based architecture firm that does a lot of urban infill development, multifamily design, and beyond. He is a charismatic leader. He has a magnetic personality. He's built a great team over the last 12 years, and we're going to learn from his worldly travel and his entrepreneurial journey today, all while learning the keys to developing successfully in the greater Boston area. So, and I guess one last piece is we get to hear about his new company, his new venture that they are launching. It's an EMBARC partnership. So stay tuned to the end to hear more about that. But without further ado, let's get to my conversation with Dartagnan Brown. Please join me in welcoming Dartagnan. Dartagnan, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Renz. Appreciate it.
I, for one, have been really excited to have you on this show. And you and everyone at EMBARC have been critical partners in our growth at H&O. Have been a top client of ours almost from day one when we launched in 2016. And I personally can't thank you enough for that and admire the company you've built. So it's my pleasure to share your story and your team's value here today. For the people that don't know you, could you share a little bit about yourself and EMBARC and what you're up to today?
Essentially, I founded and run a firm called EMBARC. We're a Boston-based, actually out of the South End, practice that has close to 50 architects now. It's actually a nice combination of architects, interior design. We have a strong team of interior designers, about 7 or 8 individuals there, and then a great support network of controller, finance, HR, and operations. So we're essentially, I used to think of it as a boutique firm, but actually, a decent mid-sized firm now, practicing in Greater Boston is the majority of our work, but we're actually licensed and practice in about 7 different states, really through just a network of clients that we've established in Boston that then take their work beyond, and we've kind of nicely followed with them.
What markets do you serve, or market sectors, I should say?
Yeah, great question. So for those that don't know us, our main line of work is in multifamily residential. So it's typically the wood frame over podium, a lot of these urban infill sites, suburban ground up developments. And I'd say the scale of work maybe 5 years ago was more in the 20 to 50 unit range with a couple outliers. Now we're really focused on the 7,500 upwards of 500 units. Is more in line with kind of the bulk of the work. And I think that the cool thing about the firm is we don't have a single niche market and just doing that. We'll still do the really cool boutique 4-unit, really high-end condo, say in a Brookline. We're doing a 35-unit in Wellesley, really just pushing the market. So it's more about the client and what they're looking for in an architect to help elevate their work. And that, for us, I think intentionally we've kept the spectrum of work quite wide. Yeah, and beyond that, I'd say, that makes up, again, probably 75, 80% of the work. And then the balance is really nicely bridges a couple of different sectors. We do a bunch of commercial, hospitality, restaurant, retail. Last year, we finished the Lord Hobo kind of main spot and in dry dock at to dry dock in the seaport. Mm-hmm. We're working actually in a hotel now out in Aspen for the White Elephant
Very
group out
exciting.
of, yeah, Nantucket, Miami. And then we've done a bunch of other cool commercial fit outs and, just a fun, engaging kind of portfolio range.
Yeah, and I think your team's ability to grow over the last 5 years is a testament to the quality of people that are on your team and your ability to deliver value and the work product, right? What people or experience did you have in life that really influenced kind of your direction and your vision to be an architect?
Yeah, this is a fun one for me. I think stepping back, I was very fortunate to have parents that were quite worldly. So grew up overseas. My dad was actually an ex-Navy guy turned banker that ran a bank for the Middle East in the 70s and 80s, and that brought us to being born in Iran, follow the Shah. We quickly moved to India, where he closed out the bank, then transferred to Singapore for a handful of years, where my brother was born, continued on to Hong Kong, where I went to high school, and then I landed in New York, upstate New York at Rensselaer for my degrees in architecture. And I think just seeing so many different kind of takes on what architecture is, kind of growing in vastly different neighborhoods has really been in the background of an influencer for me what design is all about. And it goes beyond the buildings itself. It's really based on cultural experiences, how individuals engage with buildings, what buildings mean to neighborhoods. And I think that's, in the background been there. And then more specifically, when I went to New York, just getting, through a pretty rigorous degree program at RPI, coming out into a brief stint in the California market. I was actually just tired of New England at that point in my life because I'd always been in really warm countries. So the thought of moving out to California, but not realizing I picked probably the worst place to move to, which was Silicon Valley. And as many people know, when you first start in architecture and making salaries that can barely afford rent, that didn't work out. So I quickly pivoted, came to Boston, and just saw Boston as a great place to start my career officially. Worked for a couple of great firms in the area, learned a ton between the two different firms that I had about a 5-year stint at each. Built a great relationship basis from those companies. And from there have really, used that as a starting point to jump off and create EMBARC.
Really cool. I'm always so intrigued by the worldly experiences people have early in life. Like for much of my life, I viewed like driving in traffic into Boston as a huge burden, and I would like not leave my like suburban town.
Yeah,
We were like, why would anyone drive in traffic? And here I am, and this is my new worldly is I sit in traffic every day driving to Boston. Right?
yeah, yeah.
So I think it's really cool to have those different cultural experiences, and I can see how that shapes your view and the different perspectives you're able to bring to each project. The entrepreneurial journey, did you always aspire to run your own firm?
If you ask me now, I would say yes, of course. 15 years ago, I don't think I knew it. I think I had something in me that ultimately got me here. And seeing my very interesting parents in the sense that my dad was very entrepreneurial himself.
Yep.
So kind of had a little bit of a soiree into what that meant. But I think for me, the biggest thing is just getting to a point in my career where I could see myself being limited by the structure I was within, and not being comfortable being complacent.
Yes.
And I think that really said, okay, it's time to get up and do your own thing. And that was really kind of what spawned it. And I think, what I found in creating EMBARC is really, EMBARC for me, the name came about, not naming it after myself. It's not Brown and Associates.
Very smart.
Yeah, it's really, because for me, it's really about the team. and to embark on a journey. It was kind of a twist on the EMBARC K. We swapped it to a C to relate to architecture. But it's really a journey that we have not only with ourselves, our team, the clients, the site. It all comes together to really be a much more involved process. I think that's been a fundamental kind of core value of who we are. And the nice thing, it's who we are, not who I am.
Yes.
And we've been able to grow an awesome team that I've had the pleasure of working even well before starting EMBARC, built a great relationship. And so as the firm grew, as we were able to take on these seasoned individuals, we were able to bring them on with a really good basis of work that just helped really continue that journey.
If we go back to the days when you were launching EMBARC, right? So you feel this sense of confinement in your current career path that kind of pushes you over the edge to say, like, launching my own firm is the path for me.
Right.
I had a similar feeling where the cost of inaction was so great that I was willing to overcome, and I almost didn't look at launching a business as a risk. It was a necessity to achieve the life that I wanted. And it's, I see it parallel. How did you, when you went to launch your firm, how did you de-risk the whole, like, you might not have revenue on day one if you just say, like, hey, I'm going to launch a firm, right? So how did you kind of build momentum and get this going?
I have an amazing wife who is.
We all need that partner in life.
Yeah. And she actually, I give her all the credit for seeing beyond what I was engrossed in day to day. And it was really her prompting that said, you're going to, essentially not be happy, let me put it politically correct, if you stay down this path. So she quickly pivoted, took a very stable job, got all the health insurance. We had a newborn. Really, in terms of Ren's answering your question on de-risking, she de-risked the financial burden.
It's amazing.
So that I could be free to start.
What a story.
And it was amazing because, the goal is always strive to be better than where you're coming from. But understanding in a startup, there's a period of true startup that's involved. And, that's a story for a whole nother day, and or happy to answer questions on that. Yeah. But by having the support of my wife there, I could really focus on the business. First, I think close to 3 years. Didn't take a salary. Everything went back into building out the firm. It allowed me to hire great talent and pay them a normal salary. It allowed me to get all the right technology, all the right programs, software, which I don't even think people in today's age understands the capital costs behind that.
Yes.
But by having this support, from the home front, I could invest any money we made back into the business. So, knock on wood, we're not carrying debt. We're really an operating business that is removed from a lot of the daily burdens of a typical startup. But, not to take for granted just the immense amount of hours and work it took to lift this off the ground.
There's a lot of sweat equity there, but that's an amazing story. And thank you for sharing. It's like going on the entrepreneurial journey. It does take risk, and it is infinitely more enjoyable and exciting when you have a good partner at home, right?
Yeah.
Like if your personal life's in order and you have that support, because it does take effort and sacrifice to get something like a business off the ground. So just that. Could you talk to us about the journey of growing EMBARC, right? Like let's talk about, and if I have a few cues to get the conversation going, it's like, what did you initially think running a business would be like that you now believe to be completely false? Or like, how has your day-to-day focus from like the early years to today?
I think the overall journey has been one of extreme fulfillment. When you look at any particular day, yes, there's a ton of stress. There's a ton of reality around operating a business, especially of this size now, from all of the stuff that that's there in the background. That's almost like white noise: payroll, rent, insurances, the stuff that any business of the size has to take on. But once that gets in order and you're really running the business, I think the most rewarding part of the journey is being able to see what we've created in sense of a team. And I cannot underscore how valuable a strong team is. I think many people take that for granted. I don't mean to insult anybody that does, but for those that can really embrace, empower, let their finest individual shine, you get a unbelievably robust ability to grow. And this is where I think, I have a little saying we use: 1 + 1 = 4, because I think, when you empower the group and you put in the mindset to really operate as they would their own, and you kind of debunk the whole myth of, a single individual guiding everyone and kind of creating that direction, and you empower them to create their own directions and take ownership for what they embark on or have under their belts, it allows the firm to grow in a way that is so much more organic. It's so much more put together with real belief in the work that's being done. And that truly resonates with the clients. And I remember little things, like we have an amazing senior associate here who came to me one day and said, "Hey, D, I got a call from Joe and he wants to do a new project." And the first thing I did was give him a high five. And I was like, "Dude, yes, that's awesome. I'm so glad he called you and you were able to run with it," because it's just a sign that the clients have entrusted now people other than myself, to which actually, the vast majority of the firm, to go to, because they see EMBARC as a much greater, well-run entity than having any one single person manage it.
100%.
And so I think, I hope it's not a convoluted way to get back to your original question, but for me, that whole journey of getting here, I think one of my greatest strengths has been assembling a team and understanding how to put a good team together, and candidly getting better when we don't have a good team member. How do we address that so we can, keep the group strong? I think it's definitely not what I'd say a typical architect does, but the journey of myself as an architect turning more to, CEO or founder or whatever we want to call this role, business leader, has been a really rewarding experience.
Yeah, you said it well. People first organizations are the ones that align or intrigue me the most. And I think in professional services like architecture and engineering, like the value of the company truly is in the people and the culture, that the environment that those people are working within. And if you can get those two things right, you can overcome a lot of hurdles in business.
100%.
And then like a team's ability to grow is directly correlated to their ability to attract talent and to attract like-minded clients, right? You want to be a value aligned and you want to align in the goals that you're trying to achieve. And I think you've done that extremely well.
Yeah.
Could you share a little bit about, I always look at a key point in organizational growth and almost like an unlock to the next level of that company is when you start to build out your leadership team. And you've already given your team great praise here, but from somebody that works closely with your team, we see a very high level of like just personal character, capacity, their competency to work independently and guide jobs. Could you talk to us about like the realization of like, hey, I need to really build out this leadership team and invest in that second level of leadership to help this company grow?
Absolutely. So I think any leader of the firm has to have an extremely strong team that can execute on behalf of the firm. And I think for myself, the biggest thing in regards to that is just, it goes back a little bit to what I said earlier about empowering the team, but knowing you have the right people in that position. And I've had, again, I think I mentioned earlier, but just the privilege of working with 3 of the 4 principals of this firm for a long time, so really knew who they were as individuals and that they do and will always represent EMBARC extremely well. And you know, I think one thing we've kind of identified or even talked about as a group earlier is, you know, no one person wants to be the bottleneck of growth for the firm. And if you have 4 solid principles, you know, in addition to myself, you've really broadened that ability to grow and get yourself in a market versus, you know, not spending time or, you know, investing in the leadership group.
Well said.
So again, it's been an extremely important aspect to look at. We actually spend a lot of time doing what we call finding the futures. We have a great guy that's joined on the ops side that's helped kind of narrate or orchestrate where we step back from the day-to-day and we're really being didactic about how we break down different parts of running a firm, both from what we call outward facing between clients, sector growth, you know, in the realm community, then the inward facing between execution, design. And so having each one of us kind of focus or touch upon these different sectors and making sure the firm has a well-rounded approach, I think is, you know, just again, further enabled us to grow. And
Yes.
grow.
So you brought on a consultant to kind of engage and create space for your leadership team to be thinking strategically about the business, right?
Actually, we brought him in-house. So
In-house. Oh, great.
Yeah, which is not typical, but we were introduced to him through someone here at work, met him, and I just liked the way he thought. And,
Love that.
and it was and you know, maybe I shouldn't say this on camera, but I'm one of these guys that are less about the resume and more about the person.
Yeah.
So typically, luckily at this stage, you know, when we interview people, you know, we'll have a couple guys and gals that will do the first round or 2 and get through all the process. And then I really meet to just say, hey, you know, what's up? Like, who are you? Tell me about you, because I want to know how you're going to represent the firm, even if it's inward facing, outward facing. And for me, I'm really looking just at personality and the ability to engage, the ability to, you know, work with the team, work with the clients, work with the consultants. You know, so it's been a fascinating.
Hey everyone, quick break from the episode. If you're enjoying today's episode, please send this to a friend, like, share, comment, subscribe. It's the only way we're going to help more people. Let's get back to the show. You mentioned identifying bottlenecks there, right? No one wants to be the bottleneck. And oftentimes when you're growing a business, we tend to be the bottleneck in the business, right? As a leader. So building out that leadership is a key point. And I think, and maybe you can share your experience, something I look for there when you are able to share some of those leadership positions and leadership responsibility, it frees up the space for the CEO to actually identify what is the bottleneck. If you're buried in work, overwhelmed with the day-to-day and putting out fires, sometimes you don't have the mental space, let alone the time to identify those bottlenecks when you're in it.
Right. Yeah, I think we're very cognizant about staying ahead of this. And I think working with the leaders, again, identifying back into different sectors of the firm, and then we focus in on that, can regroup and make sure, you know, even then, candidly, don't become bottlenecks for the next layer or 2. And I think a key pivot in the last 9 months to a year is, you know, we were at the stage of looking outward to hire and grow kind of that middle sector of the team. And now we've nicely pivoted with the help of our ops guy to really grow within. So we're trying to take a lot of the younger staff, get them the right tools, the right mentorship, the right ability to actually step up and then allow the next tier to step up so that they can then even relieve a lot of the principals, so the principals can step back and help me with a lot of the thinking and kind of broader high level aspects of running a firm.
Promote from within is a winning strategy. I think that's a fantastic move. And like you already mentioned, if you can attract good people, having an environment where they can see and visualize their future opportunity and their career growth is a great recruiting tool and a retention tool.
Definitely. And I think the one thing I got out of, again, working at two great firms in the city was the ability to make sure everyone in the firm understands what a career path could be.
So important.
And how do we enable that? How do we help set that up? Because I think the highest mortality rate in turnover is feeling complacent and not challenged. And, after a while, some people are okay with it, but most people the easiest way to then get that next boost or bump is switch to a different venue to be challenged again.
Couldn't agree more.
I think I've identified that for myself, that was just the reality of where I was at in past experiences. And so here the thing we're really making sure we stay focused on is how do we get ahead of that? We're actually, brought on outside coaching for associates, senior associates to engage in a much broader spectrum of other individuals at similar stages in their career.
Love that.
To have a network to talk confidentially, but in a collaborative manner outside of the firm. So that if they're facing challenges within the day-to-day here, they have a sounding board or a group of outside colleagues and peers that they can talk to. And we completely are supportive of.
Love
and
that.
in fact, set that up so we can help everyone stay, highly engaged and have a solid career path.
Yeah, having a clear career path, having resources for them to learn and grow from, and again, like learn from their experiences. If they have a challenging day at work or a challenging client or internal conflict, it helps to have resources available for them to talk through it, right? Like those are absolutely great investments in continuing to build and strengthen a culture for a long term, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Well done. And I want to take the time now to move on to EMBARC and what you guys do exceptionally well. You have a great branding statement, the union of client, site, and design. Did I say that right? I did.
You got it. Yeah.
Could you talk to us about what that statement means to you?
Absolutely. So we, I thought hard and fast about this one. Again, with the premise that, we're all here to embark on a journey, and what does that mean? And I think the biggest thing we found, over these last several years, officially started in 2011, but really found a name in the Boston arena, say over the last 5, 6, 7 years, it's, grown, nicely in terms of just being able to step back and hear a lot of the buzz around who we are.
Absolutely.
But I think what we've seen is people really are appreciative that we can look at each individual project with a very specific lens on who we're dealing with as a client, what does the site entail, and then how do we apply the right design to that actual property or opportunity that a developer may bring us. And if you have a moment to ever glance at our website, and I know you personally, your firm has worked on a lot of the buildings themselves from a structural perspective, but if you look at it from kind of a completed project, you can see our work spans an immense spectrum of outcomes, I'll call it. Mm-hmm. Somebody once said to me, hey, you don't really have a set aesthetic or style for the firm. are you good with that? And I said, absolutely. I
Yeah.
said, that's the thing people love to us, because they can come to us with a very boutique, bespoke brownstone. We can do a modern high rise. We can do a crafted hotel. Because developers, clients have seen that we really adapt. We're not ego driven at all. So if we get a site and it's a 400 unit rental project up in New Hampshire, we're very sensitive or tuned to what that market is about, versus say a 20 unit development in Brookline, where it's a completely different demographic, different market, different client type running the project. So in a sense, we've almost created ourselves as chameleons in a way that we take on the personalities or embrace the personalities of each of these different circumstances, and really can help that client in that particular situation push what they are developing as developers.
That to me doesn't feel like an easy skill to develop, right?
Yeah.
Like you're taking on somebody else's personality and then
Yeah.
putting that to work. And I would say I agree. I can see from my vantage point that you can't necessarily pick out an EMBARC building because your designs truly are unique to the site and take
Right.
on that property. I've
Yeah.
always admired that about your firm. Is there how do you do that? How do you create, like, do you have studios? Do you have teams that focus on
Yeah.
different designs? Like, how do you teach that skill?
Yeah, it's surprisingly, if you step back and really embrace that things don't come from above, and they come from across the spectrum of talented individuals in our firm, everyone brings a different aesthetic eye to a problem, right? And so that's the difference, I think, on sole sourcing the design from a typical leader of a firm versus the EMBARC approach that even individuals right out of school have a hand in design.
That must make them pretty excited too, to get like kind of their own, bring value to see their design.
100% excited, empowered. And so when we get a certain project that comes in the door, because we have a large array of talent in the office, we can hone in on who the right group is, or if somebody's coming out of one project type and they want to flex their muscles in something else, we can position it accordingly. But again, the design drive here is so multifaceted on who works on it and the input. It's allowed us to shape the firm this way.
Very nice. Another title I've heard is the developer's architect. And I know, living in Boston and being around obviously real estate development and design, it's a pretty unique design and development process that we have to go to. So where do you think that name comes from? And if you're looking at urban infill development, like, what's the key to unlocking value?
At least from what I've heard from the marketplace, being coined kind of a developer's architect has really come about from understanding not only how design impacts kind of the value of a project, but how the actual form, the building efficiencies, the unit floor plates, all of that stuff. At the end of the day, a developer will definitely have kind of prowess around design, but they need the project to work. And so the developer's architect phrase, I think, has come about because even from day one, when we're doing concept design, we'll quickly back into a full spreadsheet of data for any of these test prints from a footprint layout. So while we're massing through a site, they and their team are penciling a pro forma, and they can say, okay, based on this, the number of things, the sellable, rentable square foot, the retail, they can, work through all of that and know the deal is a go or no go. And I think that's something I don't think a ton of architects spend as much time developing that on early.
It
But
feels
it's
like
been,
judgment's really important there. Like, right.
yeah, and again, the firm, even just in the last 12 years, we've probably done, I don't even know, 12, 13,000 units of housing. But beyond that, our collective experience goes well beyond that, that we can look at a site pretty easily and just pencil into a lot of that data that typically developers would then have to do themselves. So if we can hand over a spreadsheet that's got all that information and then they're really plugging in the numbers on their end, they're like, wow, this is really refreshing, helpful, expeditiously done. They can feel a lot of comfort in proceeding, and with that kind of attention to this kind of sector of putting a project together, we have an extremely high what we call build to design ratio. So
Important metric.
yeah, and I don't think we ever deliberately set out to do that, but when you see the number of projects that we get to design and actually get built are in the 90+%,
Wow.
it's pretty impressive for the group of individuals we have here.
So for those unfamiliar, what D'Artagnan's referring to, it happens more often than not than you think, is when a building gets designed, it ends up, you get through all the design and either you have to turn back around and redesign it because it doesn't fit the city's demands or the zoning board of approval, or financially it just doesn't make sense because we didn't do a good job at project planning, and then so the deal might die or be sold and then get redesigned. So good project plannings lead to that ability, like having an understanding of the city and all those things lead to a building actually being built, right? Because we're talking about the right things early.
Yep, exactly.
How does the neighborhood process work in Boston development? It seems like they wield quite the hammer.
Yeah.
Is that a hurdle?
Well, what specific neighborhood?
Well,
I
I
think
guess
for us,
that's a good thing to share, right? Like, are
yeah,
different neighborhoods more challenging to build in than others? Like, how much
yeah,
weight
for
do they have
sure.
on a development? Can they stop a
For,
development?
there are definitely neighborhoods that are a lot more challenging and to their credit, suffer from what we call development fatigue. Just, being subject to so much of the growth in the city of Boston. There are other neighborhoods that welcome it because they see or need the housing and understand kind of the value of what that brings to their neighborhoods to
Hmm.
support local industry. So, and then outside kind of the 13 cities and towns of Boston proper, we practice in all different neighborhoods like Brookline and Cambridge and Wellesley. And, it ranges quite a bit. And so, again, going back to that ability to cater to what the audience is, we definitely have internally individuals that are attuned to each of those different towns or cities so we can go in and have kind of lasting relationships.
Hmm.
I think when we go to get something approved through the city, we come in a very approachable manner. I'm typically in jeans and a blazer. We're there to sit around the table. We're there to meet with the abutters. We're there
Hmm.
to, really design and solve into a solution that can be supported by a lot.
Hmm.
We've had the great fortune of working with several developers that understand the value of doing that and have even facilitated
It's great.
in doing a lot of like open house forums, that set up a casual manner in which you can go to a neighborhood and engage the community in less of a very structured way so we can truly hear them, adapt, take in their feedback, make sure they're heard.
Yeah.
And that allows you to get a really strong approval support. So when you go in front of the zoning board, you can stand up, with great confidence that you've gone through the process correctly and you've done all the right things. And the project's been informed by the process, both from a neighborhood perspective, from a city's perspective, working closely with the BPDA, great relationships there. And, allowing that to form and create the project ultimately present for approval has all been a huge part of kind of getting that process, that a lot of developers have seen that we understand how to do that, and we understand how to engage, and we understand the value in that. It's, I'd say in the last, again, 11, 12 years, we've probably taken upwards of 250 buildings through
That type of
that.
process.
Yeah, that
Wow.
process. And the city's, aware and acknowledged how wonderfully attuned we are to going through that process, that it,
Great.
just makes it, that bit easier to get through.
The key word I hear in that conversation is being heard, right?
Yeah.
Like chances are the people that are contributing in those meetings don't completely understand design and development. So not everybody, and there's more than one person's opinion, right? So not everybody's opinion can be there, but they at
Yeah.
least get a sense of the development and design intent, and they can be heard and felt like they're contributing, have a factor there. So
Yeah.
I think that's great. What's next? What's the next 5 years? What's coming up? What can we expect from Dartagnan, from EMBARC?
I think, to that question, what we're actually in the last couple of weeks, what's been a fascinating, I don't know if turn of the events is the right thing, but just a fascinating outcome of being so engrossed in the city that we love practicing in is we've seen a lot of people we work with kind of get that value.
Love
And
that.
so I don't know if you happen to see on our Instagram, but in the last couple of weeks, I was actually out at the Vegas IBS Builders Conference. And we have a great relationship with a Turkish group called Leon that essentially represents 18 to 20 manufacturers from overseas
Okay.
that are working with us closely to supply a lot of building products that, triple glazed windows, flooring, tile, cabinetry. And so we have this nice relationship with us, and they actually talked to us and they said, hey, would you guys be interested in working with us to create a furniture line for EMBARC? And I said, man, absolutely. And so we actually launched a couple of weeks ago Park, which is an urban furniture line by EMBARC, in
How
in a
exciting is this?
wonderful relationship that we built with this Turkish group, Leon, and people that they work with. So we're out in Vegas. We'll be doing an official launch on this soon. But essentially, it's just a nicely crafted set of I'll say components that then assemble into items like furniture benches, tables, pergolas, trash receptacles. But we've really spent some time to model through and design a kit of parts that we can then use and put together to adapt to different spaces or solutions we may need on site. We're going to actually have one of them installed in our office in a couple of weeks. I'd love you to come over and see it. But I think for us, it's just a great way to extend, not only the relationship, but have people at our office partake in that, really get to, design for us, I think as we've alluded to, is not specific to any one thing. And so to be able to translate that into furniture that goes into projects we design, is pretty cool.
So cool. It's another synergy. You grew from architecture to then integrating interior design, and
Yeah.
then now you're adding on furniture and beyond. I
Yeah.
think that's really exciting. All right. And the company name again?
Park, PARC.
PARC. I think I'm going to forever spell embark wrong because of you guys. I'm going to always spell it with a C first and get corrected. So now I'll spell park wrong too. If people wanted to learn more about park, where could they go to find out about that?
Yeah, they could email me directly,
All right.
or Ryan in our office. I'll
Oh,
shoot over, but myself directly, and I can connect with Ryan. And we're literally building through all of that database now. We had a great, robust level of interest out of the Vegas conference, so we're kind of through that prototyping stage, working
very
with the
nice.
manufacturer now for production, and we can love to chat with anybody and take it from there.
And your team's on all major social platforms, Instagram and LinkedIn. Would you care to share your website so people could come learn more about EMBARC? And I'm sure they'll see Park there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's embarcdesign.com. That's EMBARC design, DESIGN.com.
And to close out today, I have two questions that I ask at the end of each interview. And one is, do you have a top book or podcast that you'd recommend?
I actually started reading, and my wife may laugh at me for not getting further, is a book called Quit. So it's embracing or understanding when's the right time to quit, and that's not necessarily a bad thing.
It's a hard thing to do.
It's a hard thing to do, but if you can master it and really be able to look at things objectively and know you may be in something or some relationship or whatever it is that isn't right, is it better to accept and move forward than lament and not. So
that's a great recommendation. That's an important concept to grasp.
Yeah.
And the last thing we'll leave is, what advice do you have for emerging leaders?
When you find yourself in a position of doubt and have in your mind a place that you want to get, I cannot underscore the value of really leaning in, figuring it out, and just getting to it. There's no day better than the present day. And so I think for emerging individuals that look at an opportunity like this, there'll always be a reason why not. And if I can start it with the situation I was in, and I didn't layer in all the other stuff that was going on in terms of newborn and everything else, but you fast forward 10 or 12 years from now, don't let anything get in your way, but definitely take a couple of minutes, kind of structure out a business plan, understand how you can build a 1, 5, 10-year scenario, what that growth path looks like, how to engage yourself in the market, how to surround yourself with people that have been there, done that. I think will lead for the most ultimate success.
What a great way to end today's conversation. Dartagnan, thank you so much. I'm excited to watch the next 5-10 years of EMBARC. I admire everything that you're doing. And thanks for joining us on Design Development.
Yeah, pleasure, Renz. Thank you again, and cheers to your team.
Hi, everyone. Real quick before you leave for the day, if we could ask one favor. If you enjoyed today's conversation, if you're enjoying all the conversations on design development, please share this with someone that you think will benefit from it. Our goal is to help as many people in the design, development, and construction industries. And with your help, I think we can spread the word and help more people. Thanks for tuning in, and can't wait to hear from you next time.